sculling crew who won the 1936 Olympics. And the courage, the bravery, and the hardship they had to go through was all about the University of Washington, all about Washington. And here I am, and I just finished the book. So I got a whole new appreciation of Washington. Not that I didn't appreciate, but coming from Los Angeles with UCLA and USC and Washington, it's tough. I'm here. I'm all for Washington while I'm here. So here I am. Because I always forget. I'm going to take photographs and autographs later after this, because I don't want to forget to tell you about that. But I want to, before I take your questions, and where is there a microphone set up there? Right there. Okay. Just nobody around it. It's an empty microphone standing there all by itself. Well, you're there. You're going to spring out of there. But before I take the questions, I wanted to. I do come to some Comic Cons over the years. The first one was way back in the 70s, and there were like 15,000 people. And they were saying there's a Star Trek convention, and when you go to it, I'm not going to go to a Star Trek convention. And they'll ask me questions, and I don't know what to say. And what do you say? So I didn't go for the first while, and then they said, "Well, there's 15,000 people." So I stood in front of 15,000 people, not knowing what was going to come out of my mouth, except a little spittle here and there, and that's no good. So I've done them over the years. And then, 3-4 years ago, a company in Australia said, "Would I come and do a one-man show?" So I thought, I've heard about one-man shows, and I've seen some, and they're extraordinary. One guy, one person, one individual, man or woman, gets up in front of a lot of people and entertains them for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, that's like impossible. There was one-man show that had a lot of dancing girls. Well, that isn't a one-man show. That's a one-man show with a lot of dancing girls. And he sang and danced. It was a wonderful show, but it wasn't a one-man show. So it's a challenge. It's like the ultimate. It's like, come to think of it, it's like the 8-crew rowing group from Washington that won the Olympics. It's almost unique. I mean, how do you do that for that length of time? Make somebody listen to me. She's still on her phone, but it usually works. But so it's a matter of rhythm and pace and having something interesting to say. Now, I didn't know whether I had all that, except that I had done these conventions over the years, and I would tell a story, something happened to me, and as I was telling it, I'd be able to make it a little amusing and yet informative, and it seemed to work. I was able to hold people for like, you're all sort of listening to me, is it? So I said to this guy in Australia, "Okay, I'll do a one-man show, and it's in Australia. Who'll know if I fail?" So I went to Australia, and it went very well. There was a guy on stage, sort of interviewing me, asking me, I don't remember whether they were prepared questions or whether it was sort of an interview style. So there was like a famous interviewer in Australia, and we went to four or five cities, which is all they have in Australia. I mean, I did Australia, and it went very well. People listened for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So and Canada said, "Would I tour Canada?" So I toured Canada, and it went very well. And somewhere in Montreal, the guy said, "Would I come to Broadway?" Broadway! A one-man show on Broadway! That's the ultimate test of any actor. So I rewrote the show, got rid of the extra guy, brought in a movable chair, which didn't speak, which is much better for me, and opened on Broadway. By the way, since it's the ultimate test of being alone on stage, anywhere, but let alone on Broadway. He's the producer. He's a big cheese. That's the big guy. Are you coming to get me off stage? No.
You stay right where you're at. I just wanted to let everybody know if they wanted to ask some questions, you can go ahead and line up.
Yeah, but not yet. I'm in the middle of the story. We'll get you to ask us questions. So where was I? Broadway. Okay, so I haven't been able to rehearse it because it was like immediately. The theater opened up and I had to get it. So it's now, I haven't rehearsed this new version of the show. And it's the night before the opening. Tomorrow's the opening. And my wife and a friend and I go out to dinner. And they order fish. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to order fish because you never know where that fish is. I'm going to order something. I'm going to order a hamburger. What could be safer than a hamburger? Because I'm facing tomorrow night the big test. Guess who gets sick and the others who don't get sick? I guess what is food poisoning that afternoon. Now, I'm facing a couple of hours. I've got 2 doctors working on me. I'm exuding fluids. And I'm dehydrating and I'm really sick. And I've got to go in front of the critics on Broadway in a one-man show. And I can't be more than 3 feet from a toilet. So we open, and I'm thinking, you know, what I've got to do in this crisis is give it a historical point of view. Like, someday in the future, I'll be in the state of Washington. And I'll be telling this story of great success to an audience who appreciates it. But right now, I've got to think of it that way. I can't think, what the devil am I going to do if I get sick? And, well, it happened. Excuse me, technical difficulty, I'll be right back. And it's upstairs, my dressing room. I even had to, well, it doesn't matter. So I had to get up, it took me a few minutes, and I came back down and finished the show. Got great reviews. A lot of people came to see it. Toured 40 cities, great review, great reaction. People loved it, and I'm bringing it on December 4th here at the and you'll have the best time with me, I promise. So do come on December 5th at the Performing Arts Center. Tickets West, is that the name of the thing? Tickets West. So I've got that out of the way. So now let's find out what you want to do. First question. Aren't you patriotic? That's great.
America.
I'll salute you as you ask that question.
Me too. So, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment personally, not professionally?
Well, depends what you mean. I ride a lot of horses. Yeah. In fact, I started off.
Not unicorns?
What?
I said, not unicorns?
I hate to be the last one to understand a joke. Especially when you're up here and everybody's laughing at you. What the hell are you saying?
I said, you said you ride a lot of horses, and I said, not unicorns?
Not unicorns. Oh, that's so funny. I had written a little as a kid, and on a rental horse. I'd swabbed out stables, and then they'd lend me a horse, and I'd get around on. And then, a couple of years after that, I had to do other things, school, and never got to another horse until I had enough money to buy a horse. So I had a little land in California, and the guy who was looking at the land said, you ought to run a horse here, a horse. So I said, okay. He said, there's a sale going on next week, an auction. Why don't you take a look, and we'll help you. We got some people who know quarter horses. So I said, okay. So I went to the auction, and a bell rang. And I knew then that was the horse I had to. So there's a 12-year-old kid that's supposed to own horses. So his name is Philip. And Philip was saying, oh, Bill, Mr. Shatner, there's a horse. And meanwhile, the auctioneer's going, hey, I got 50, I got 50. And I said, that horse there? No, I don't want that horse there. And so, so I was torn between embarrassing myself saying, I said no to this 12-year-old like this. I didn't say yes to you, or just going along. So I went along with it. So I had my first horse. That evolved into going to Kentucky and getting into American saddlebreds and then standardbreds and then quarter horses. So over the years, that book or the theory, you've got to put in 10,000 hours to become adept at something, really good at something. I put in my 10,000 hours as a horseman, and so I've gotten really good. I just came away on Thursday from a competition that's going on in Los Angeles right now. I came up here for Friday and Saturday, and tomorrow I'm going back to the competition, and on Thursday, 100 or so competitors, I placed 4th, and I didn't ride well, but I'll ride better on Sunday. So, I've gotten really good, and I sort of feel, I feel the unity, the 10,000 hours. I'm sort of like at one with the horse. Well, there's an American breed called the American saddlebred, high-necked, high-headed, show horse, and they're very emotional, very high-strung. And so to make one a Western pleasure horse is quite a feat. To make it walk slowly, jog low, to be good. Western pleasure horse. Pleasure. I'm on a Western pleasure horse. I wipe my brow, the horse gets frightened, whirls around, drives me into the ground, and I break my leg. That's what I said. So, I was laid up. That's the first time I've broken a leg. And I had heard about the medical fact that muscles tighten up and actually splint the brain. Nature takes care of it. It takes 6 weeks for bones to heal, and around the 5th week, after being in an incredible pain, about the 5th week, the muscles begin to relax, and nature's taking care of it. So they didn't splint. But I had to get to the San Diego Comic Con from Los Angeles 4 days after I broke my leg. And I don't know whether any of you have broken anything, but it is painful. So I got into a car with a wheelchair, people lifting me, and I got to the Comic-Con because there was something happening. Anyway, I had to go on stage with Betty White. So just before I go on, and I'm in a wheelchair and they wheel me on, that professor of astronomy, the tall, thin guy with the glasses, yeah, whatever his name is, hands me a rock that is a meteorite. He says it's 4.5 billion years old. So I go on stage, and I've been taking Vicodin because I'm in intense pain. I said to the audience, look at this. 4.5 billion years old. Betty, do you have any recollection of... 5 or 6 weeks after that, I'm back on a horse, and I'm back in competition. And if you ask me what I'm most proud of, there's something to point at, that I was back in competition. I wanted to ride. Why did he leave before I was finished? Do you think he was bored, or did he feel self-conscious of standing there? We don't know. It'll remain one of the mysteries we'll never answer.
That's right. We have many mysteries that will never be answered. I'm a huge fan, Mr. Shatner, have been for a long time. Since the Twilight episode scared me so bad that I won't fly.
That Twilight Zone was Terror 27.
Yes.
It's been one of the, I've never understood why it's been around for so long. I mean, people just keep talking about what? It's what?
It's terrifying.
It's classic. But why is it classic? What is it about it that there were so many other better shows? I mean, so many.
It was you.
That was a rhetorical question, but it's actually giving an answer. Why do you think? I have an idea why. What's the answer? You think that has remained so popular? That Twilight Zone. Things with long arms going around. But it's stupid! I mean, when I saw the guy, he's a Czechoslovakian acrobat. Okay? In a little furry suit. It staggers, it beggars the imagination that there could be any reality. If it was like a dragon or something, claws holding on to them, you could sort of, okay, it's a dragon, or it's a sleek, it's the Borg or something like that, you know. But a guy, a Czechoslovakian acrobat in a little furry suit, that's stupid! And yet, there it is. And I don't think it's anything practical. I think it addresses the very thing you were just saying. Every time the airplane lurches, don't you go, oh jeez. You know, and then you look out on the window to see if anything's on the way. My children, as they didn't know, we wouldn't let them see those things, but as they got older, when they saw the show, every time we flew, they would say, Dad, play the game. And here's the game. Oh, ma'am! I'm looking out the window. Ma'am! Would you come here a moment, please? And the flight attendant comes up. Yes, sir? Good.
And I have my cue card here because the value hasn't kicked in yet.
Because what?
The value hasn't kicked in yet. It's just like nerve-wracking.
Oh, it's nerve-wracking. Oh, the volume hasn't kicked in yet. I thought I heard the word chicken in there. Value, okay.
You know, you've had lots of roles outside of Star Trek, and we all know that you're a Shakespearean trained actor. If you could go back in time, because you'll always be known as Captain Kirk, would you then have changed your the time, you know, that
Is the value kicking in at all?
No. Would you have accepted the role?
Would I change anything?
Yeah, would you have accepted the role?
If Captain Kirk hadn't happened?
If you could go back knowing what you know now, knowing that you would be known for the role of Captain Kirk, outside of your other roles, would you have changed your decision to play Captain Kirk?
So here's the thing. Look at me. I'm in good health. I'm in better than good health. I am vibrant. On the Do It Yourself Network on Thursday night, there was an hour of my wife and me refurbishing the house. I don't think any of you saw it.
Yes, we did. Oh my.
Did somebody see it?
Did
It was fun, wasn't it? So there's an hour. That'll be on every Thursday night. I don't know. There's 7 or 10. It's they mixed up the East and West Coast, and so somewhere along there on Thursday night, either at 7 or 10 o'clock, is me and my wife redoing our house. I'm so healthy. I am so lucky. I am so in the creative. I'm so in the midst of so much creativity. I've got a new book coming out called Catch Me Up. Catch Me Up. On Monday, I'm going on the Craig Ferguson show. Woo! I'm going to give you a little preview. Nobody knows this, and then you're going to Twitter and everybody. So they give you a pre-interview on these shows. What are you going to talk about? And I don't know whether any of you have seen me on Craig Ferguson, but we've sort of got a rapport where we smoke a cigar and have a little tea that's supposed to be drink, and we talk and without anything prepared. So whatever comes to mind. But I've got something in mind because I want to publicize this book, Catch Me Up, which is about how to hire yourself. Over the age of 50, people are having difficulty getting work because they're more expensive, and so the economic situation for people over 50 is very difficult. My book carries the theory that you could hire yourself, and here's how you do that. Here's how you make a website. Here's how you get online. So there's very practical things about this book that I'm very excited by, and there is a website, catchmeup.com, which exists now. The book won't be out until early December. So I'm going to go on the Craig Ferguson show. Now, I don't know whether any of you know this, but Craig Ferguson is at the end of his run. Like another week or two, and that'll be the end of his show. So I'm going to say, so you're unemployed. I talked to him about food stamps. So that's what I'm going to do on Monday. They don't know it, and you're the only ones that keep it quiet. Just keep it quiet. What's your question?
And I also have...
Wait a minute. You've got to have a microphone, otherwise...
And I also have my tickets for Shatner's World.
And now, perfect. And now the volume was kicked in, you couldn't be happier. You look so pretty. The 50th anniversary of the show. How's that possible? I mean, why is that? So I did a documentary. In fact, I wrote a book as well on. Called it Get a Life. Who comes to these things? Why are you here? And in the book, this is the first show of its kind here, right? In Spokane. This is the first show. Well, in many cities, they go on, and hopefully this will go on as an annual thing. Every year you'll come, you'll see other people. But my book, I went around in the book and research on the book, and I put masks on. I didn't even do makeup. I did a rubber mask. Yeah, I would make my voice because I wanted to talk to the people. Why are you here? And every time I did that, they said, Shatner, is that you? So I did interviews, why people were there. And the conclusion I came to in the book was they're there to see each other. You're here to, if this were more than the first time, you're here to see each other. And like a convention, you're here, hi, George, and they have fun. And I mean, things come to mind. There was a kid who was pathologically shy, except when he had his cat, which was dressed like Captain Kirk. And when he had the cat in his hand, dressed in this uniform, he could talk. And you could shut him up, he would talk, and he'd ask a question, and he'd keep on talking, and he wouldn't talk. Stop! He'd talk, he stopped. Take away his cat. He didn't know what to do. So there were these wonderful characters who came and each saw each other, and so that was the thesis of the book. When I went to do the film documentary years later, I went further and made another discovery. And this is the thesis of the documentary. Do UFOs exist? What's up there in space? Why, with quantum physics, can something appear and then it disappears, and like by observing it, it comes into being and then it disappears? Why is it a photon, a particle, and then a wave? What is the dark matter? Are we the only ones alive in the universe? Is there intelligent life? All these questions that abound everywhere you look. Who are we? What are we doing? Where do we come from? What's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 400 years from now? So, Star Trek in science fiction attempts to have an answer, which isn't really an answer, it's speculation. But here's a possibility. And we all come to see, oh, is that what that mind thought? That there's a Borg, or there's, there's eggs that develop, whatever. The mystical possibilities that exist beyond our ability to see and feel and hear. That's what science fiction is, and that's what you're all doing here. In a strange way, it's like mythology. Like we're building a mythology and trying to explain, yes, there'll be heroes in spaceships and doing brave things 400 years from now. The seas won't inundate us. We won't all die of monoculture. We're going to live and expand. Technology will take over and we'll be okay. That's the mythology. It's part of what we're doing here. And by coming here, you're subscribing to the ritual. Yes. That's the thesis of my documentary about Star Trek and about Twilight Zone as well. You aren't you? Yes, young man.
How long did it take when Star Trek started?
Oh, wait a minute. Let's get acquainted here. What's your name?
Sam.
Speak right into the microphone.
I'm Sam.
I'm Sam. Are you Sam? What's your question, Sam?
I was wondering when Star Trek started, how long did it take before you were really famous and everyone knew who you were?
So long, Sam. It was fun for you. It dragged on and on and on and on. Before Star Trek, gosh, long before you were alive. In a galaxy far, I was quite popular. I had done Broadway, which is in New York City, and like where all the big theaters are. Like if you go to New York City, you would go to the theater there and have a really neat experience if you chose the right play or musical or something. So the center of the theater is in New York. So I've been on Broadway a couple of times actually. I've made some famous movies. And so when they asked me to be in Star Trek, I was sort of coming along. I was a young actor coming along. But what happened was, Star Trek wasn't immediately popular. It filmed for about 3 years. During that time, we were sort of moderately successful. We were like, if you took the top 40 shows, we were in the like up to 40, so that isn't like the top 10 or the top 20, but it isn't like 100. Somewhere. So that's where we were. So after 3 years, the network, the people who played the show, said, we're not making enough money on this show. It's not popular enough. We're going to put another show in there. Maybe it'll be more popular, and we'll be able to charge more money for the ads that we play while the show's on. So far, so good? Okay. So they canceled the show after 3 years. It's gone. All the actors scattered, all the people who were creative about it, all went other places to do other things. So did I. About 6 years after that, I'm skiing on a mountain, and a guy comes up to me, recognizes me, comes up to me, skis up to me, and he says, have you seen these funny films in a local bar? You don't have to know what a bar, local restaurant. So I said, no. So I went down and I looked at, and on this television screen were these funny films They called them the outtakes. They were me and some of the other actors over day after day of filming used to sort of play funny jokes on people, like you do at school, because I can tell it in your face. So we would play jokes, like, for example, I knew that the guy who opens the door, you know, on the bridge, and it goes, whoosh, and the door opens up. I don't want you to take this too hard. But there was a guy who would, when he would see me coming up the stairs to go into the elevator, he'd wait, and then he'd go. And then later they put the whoosh sign. Unless I, with my back to camera, as the door opened, would go whoosh. This guy had a problem with drinking. You know what that is. Cream soda and so sometimes he'd drink too much Coca-Cola. And he'd fall asleep. I'd come up the door, and I expect the door to open, and I'd plow right into the door. Half the time that would happen. So it made me kind of cautious, you know, so I'd come up to the door, like, but you couldn't do that. So I had to walk as though it was going to open, and half the time it didn't. So there was a large group of these funny films playing, these outtakes, which the people who cut the film together, put it all together, had done for our Christmas party. It was for us, our own amusement. It wasn't to be commercial. But there were people in the restaurant laughing away at these funny films. I thought, wow, that's strange. Why was our Christmas party stuff 6 years later? And then I began to hear the rumors of Star Wars had happened. Do you know about Star Wars? So Star Wars had happened at another studio. So Paramount Studios said, Star Wars make a lot of money. What have we got? Oh, we got this thing called Star Trek. It was canceled 6 years ago. Maybe we can do something with that. And that's when we became popular and things started. Okay. Thank you. What did you say?
I said greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations to you.
First of all, my dad would like to thank you for my name. So,
What's your name?
Shira.
Why does he want to thank me?
Because he wouldn't agree.
Who's your mother?
He wouldn't agree to
Your mother
anything
is
that
Jane
was
from
historical.
Kokomo, is
You're good. Anyways,
and there's no family resemblance here at all. I don't say, oh, you're beautiful like mother. There's nothing.
all right, well, Randall says hi. And otherwise, I'm a big fan of all your your music with like Bohemian Rhapsody and those things.
Why are you laughing?
No reason at all.
Do you know that Bohemian Rhapsody is the background to a commercial in England, and it just got all kinds of attention? Like, oh, look what he's done, and isn't that good? And they didn't notice it when I made the album. But all of a sudden, the English are falling over themselves. But then they do anyway, because they drink a lot. Good.
Well, I was really into all the space music, because I'm a huge David Bowie fan. Huge. But anyways, if you could do if you were gonna do another song with a big music video like you had for Bohemian Rhapsody, what would you do?
Well, Bohemian Rhapsody is like one of the great songs ever written, and it was sung, as you know, it's done so well by Queen and Freddie Mercury. I just did my version of it. But what would I do is another album?
What would you do? If you had a song, there's because you did a bunch
Well,
of
wait a minute. I made an album
Yeah.
not so long ago called Pond of the Mystery. Do you know it?
Yes.
I wrote the lyrics. Billy Sherwood of the group Yes did the music. And we got magnificent reviews on it. It's really a fun album. You know, the album, guy, what do you call it? The label. Did you say label? Yeah, thank you. No, you said label. No, okay, I said label. The label said, what do you want to do? We want you to do another record. What do you want to do? So I said, okay, I got a vision that I'll write songs about a guy sitting despondent on the beach, and it's almost sundown. And then, through the beauty of the night, he regains his joy of life. And I'll just use that art, and I'll write songs about despondency, about the setting sun, about the night creatures, about where does time go, and that's what I did for the concept of the album. And it's called Pond of the Mystery, and it's out there right now, and I'm really proud of it. What would I do again
Like if you
to
were
make
to do
music?
a cover of a song.
A cover of a song.
Like
I love great lyrics, since I think sustaining a note is highly overrated. I love the music of the word. So I've tried to find a good lyric. And with the music sustaining the lyric, it becomes another interpretation completely. I sang Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds with George, with Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney, did you hear what I said? I sang Bridge Over Troubled Waters with
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon. I sang it with him on stage in front of a large group of people. We were doing a Shakespeare play, Shakespeare reading, and the producers always hired these great singers to do the musical interlude between scenes. So I'm playing Shakespeare and then occasionally singing a song. And they brought in Paul McCartney last year and Paul Simon this year, and I had this, like, the awesomeness. It was awesome. So I love a good lyric, and if I could find romantic songs. But, you know, every time a car passes me by, like at a stop sign or a stoplight, all I hear is boom, boom, boom. I got my knee in my hand. I'm gonna find a regular rock, and I'm gonna call it dead. I can't do it, as you might notice. So a soft lyric, romantic rhythm. Does that appeal to you at all? I mean, how old are you?
Definitely. I'm 18.
18? Oh, good. So that's what I would like to do. A romantic album, but I don't know whether anybody would be interested in buying that in this day and age.
Oh, I would.
You would?
I would.
One sale. Thank you so much. I'm signing and I'm photographing, and I'm here December 4th, and it's this kind of an evening, only flashy. Take care, everybody. Love you.